Hey everybody, this is Kenny along with Kenny Squared, and this is Sports on a Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, earthquake here today. I actually felt the earlier one at 6:43 a.m. or 44 a.m., which I didn't realize until the bigger one came that there was actually an earthquake. Was this because the Mets won?
Either that or it's a because Juan Soto is in town. Or okay, I saw this one. I'm sorry. Vogelback and Alec Manoah are coming into town with the Blue Jays, so they said it might have been the plane landing.
Wow, that is so bad. It's funny, but it's so
Yeah,
bad.
it's really bad.
It's so bad. And Gleyber Torres, they said, okay, I don't know what that is, but he kept taking batting practice. So I'm hoping they start the game on time. I would assume that they did. I got a quick question for you. We talked about Jackie Bradley Jr. now being with the Long Island Ducks. The Mets signed Julio Teheran, who also landed with the Ducks for a while, but he's been back in the majors for a couple of years. Of that era, 37-year-old Lorenzo Cain, whatever happened to him?
Is he with the Ducks?
No, no,
Oh,
no. I think he's out of baseball actually. But I was surprised that he fell off pretty fast too, right?
yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't played since 2022 in the major when he batted 179. I don't get it. I just, I guess stuff happens. I guess one day we'll have to talk about that. But we got a lot of other things to talk about, right? You ready to get this going?
Let's go.
Let's go. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what a weird day here in New York with this earthquake. And I didn't feel the second one, the big one, but I felt it. And I didn't know that it was a small one until I saw it online and after the big one happened. But really, really odd. So we've got a lot to get to with the Final Four, especially you being our eyes on the ground there as the women's Final Four kicks off tonight, about 15 minutes away from where you're sitting right now. But why don't we start with baseball as we are into the first week of the season? And so I will let you give you the floor for as long as you want it to talk about those Yankees. What a opening week! What an opening week! And I love it when I'm right in a good way. I really felt like the Yankees needed this. So your thoughts on opening week here with your New York Yankees?
All right, let's take the next hour to talk about how awesome the Yankees are. Um, but yeah, like you had said, you've been saying for months now, the Yankees need to get off to a good start.
Yeah,
And I agreed, and I also was nervous because I saw that those first 7 games, first of all, 7 days to start the season is usually not very common, but with it being in domes, like totally makes sense.
yeah,
But then you see it's at Houston, at Arizona, and it just made me really nervous. Because like obviously the Houston aspect of what's going on, like that's always been an issue.
yeah,
Um, and and then the defending NL champs, where there's not a lot of memories of playing in Arizona, but most of them aren't that pleasant. So, uh, it just you looked at it and you're like, oh gosh, how is this gonna work? And you couldn't have asked for a better start. Um, I'll start with this. Uh, Gleyber Torres and Aaron Judge were the only two players in the lineup last year with an OPS plus of over 100. Guys that like actually got time.
right,
And both of them were awful in the first series. And the Yankees still swept the Astros.
right.
Um, Juan Soto was really, really good at playing baseball. I feel like I've said that a lot, but like seeing him up close and watching him like actually take at bats every day, It's so fun to watch him play baseball, and I
Yeah.
really hope the Yankees lock him up long term. But I think there are a few things that I want to point out that like a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about. First is two young guys that have looked absolutely different this year in Anthony Volpe and Oswaldo Cabrera. Cabrera's
Oh,
not in the lineup today,
yeah.
but he still leads the team in home runs, which is wild.
Yeah.
Um, but both of them started opening day last year. Oswaldo spent a lot of the time hurt slash in AAA. Volpe got a lot of run, but did not play that well at all. And yet both of them just look different. This lineup just feels so much different from the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be something that's really, really important moving forward. You have guys that you don't have to rely on Aaron Judge hitting a home run in order to win the game, which it's felt like going back to even 2022 in his MVP year, that unless Aaron Judge was performing, this team isn't doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is very encouraging. The starting pitching has actually been pretty good.
Yeah.
Cortez has been okay. I've been really excited to see how Rodon has done. He's done really well so far. I'm excited for Stroman, Long Island guy, growing up a Yankees fan, is able to make opening day start at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm excited for him, and so far, I mean, just 2 hits to a good team. So, uh, I think the last thing, MLB has totally disrespected the Yankees bullpen. I don't know if you saw, they gave like top 10 of everything so far, and they started out before opening day top 10 bullpen. Yankees had the best bullpen ERA last year, did
Right.
not crack the top 10.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and the first series, they didn't give up a run. And I think they've only given up 4 runs overall. Um, Now, I am mildly concerned because I'm going to bet that Jonathan Loizaga is done for the year. Boone said significant forearm strain. He's
Uh,
already on the 60-day IL,
yeah.
which means he's gone at least until June. So I'd be surprised if you see him. Ian
Yeah.
Hamilton has looked great. I've really liked Nick Birdie so far. And Tommy Canley will be back soon. So
Yeah.
you couldn't ask for a better start. I'm
No.
hoping that they can kind of continue this momentum. And I don't know, like, I guess the only other like blemish I'm worried about is Stanton. Stanton has struck out in more than half of his plate appearances, and that's concerning.
That was surprising. Yeah. I don't have anything to add. I tell you, I got to see probably from the eighth inning on the really dramatic game 3 with the Diamondbacks that and went back and forth, and what an exciting game. And the Diamondbacks really caught a bad break when they had to take out Perdomo, and then they lost to DH. So the relief pitcher who had never hit in the major leagues, I mean, he didn't even get a swing. I'm like, at least take a swing at it, you know? But there was I believe it was right when I turned it on, and this to me summarized, aside from Soto, kind of going to become, I think, a little bit more of the face of that team. Not that he's going to replace Judge or anything like that, but Judge is still the face of that team. And I think it was in the seventh or eighth inning, he hits a line drive bullet double up the gap in right center in that ballpark, which you could run forever. But he made it was a double, and Stanton, if I remember right, was on base and scored. But that is the reason why I'm saying that's capturing what the Yankees are doing. Is the Yankees aren't over swinging. They're going with the pitches. I mean, Soto's home run in Houston was to the opposite field, which you hadn't seen him hit many opposite field home runs over the last few years. Um, but all of them seem to be just not over swinging. They seem more relaxed than I've seen them in several years. And I think that's a big deal. And their confidence just grew. Because I think I probably, aside from the couple of games, the first 2 games in Arizona, I saw bits and pieces, if not all, of most of their first 7 games here. And they just seem to be a more relaxed team. Did you pick that up too?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think it really is encapsulated in Volpe,
Yeah.
who was taking these giant swings, and like he's not a home run hitter. I know he hit 2020 last year, first rookie ever to do that, but like that's not his game. That's not what got him to the big leagues. But this year it seems like he's got more of like a level swing, a
Yeah.
lot more relaxed. I mean, it's early and stats like this don't matter, but he's batting 435.
Yeah.
The guy batted 200 last year, and like that's more his game is like uh the relaxed doubles gaps type of guy as opposed to hitting home runs.
Yeah. 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 This is good. This is important. This is vital. I would have to assume Aaron Boone had the same conversations you and I had that we need to get, we're in the best division in the major leagues. We need to get off to a big start here. Yeah.
Kind of with that too. I feel like Boone kind of showed that with how he constructed the lineup because like in years past, game 4 after you've won the first 3 games and like I heard a podcast talking about it and like it's true. Um you would see the B team lineup out there. Judge getting a day off, Soto DH, Grisham and Jahmai Jones getting starts in the outfield. But the Yankees put their A lineup to try to sweep the Astros.
Yeah.
And kind of in the same way with the way the bullpen was managed. Clay Holmes pitching 3 out of 4 days this early would never happen in years past.
Yeah.
But yet he
Yeah.
still did it. And because of that, I think that's the reason why they won.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to see them on TV a lot this year because they were the Fox Saturday night game of the week and they were the Sunday night, the opening Sunday night game, them and the Astros. I think last thing I'll say is that is coming off of good teams, borderline great teams with the D-backs and the Astros, I think made it even, well, especially for you with the Astros, you know. All right, I asked you this yesterday. Was I looking at just a bad start to the Mets season, or was I looking at a bad team? And you were leaning more towards a bad start. And so I'm leaning towards that too. I mean, it looked like we were going to start 0-6, and Pete Alonso comes out of nowhere with a home run. I mean, they went 13 innings, Kenny, 13 straight innings yesterday in that doubleheader without a hit. Um, and I mean, it was starting to get scary. And so DJ Stewart in 10 at bats now has no hits. Jeff McNeil is 1 for 15. Now, I give him a little bit more of a pass because he hardly played in spring training because he had an oblique something. He had an injury. But Lindor is 1 for 24 and Nimmo is 1 for 21. Now, Nimmo would be 1 for 24 as well, but he's drawn 3 walks. And I think Lindor would be 1 for 25 or 26 even, but I think he's drawn a walk and got hit by a pitch. Um, on the other side, though, Alvarez is batting, you just said the batting averages don't mean that much, but he seems like he's getting hit after hit every day. He's batting 424. Beatty is off to a really good start. He leads the team in RBIs. Marte looks great. Looks like he did a couple of years ago. And Alonso has been getting base hits to right field. And he's got 2 home runs. The one yesterday was massive, to at least get the Mets off the schneid, in that doubleheader yesterday that he hit in the 9th inning. And so there's some bright spots aside from Severino's start, which it appeared that he had really good stuff. It's just that the Brewers were on it. The starters have been good. It's just been the hitting. The bullpen has been okay. They blew the lead the other day when they were winning 3-0. Actually, I was yesterday when they were winning 3-0 in the first game. But outside of that, the bullpen is better, looking better than last year. So I do think it's just a bad start. I can't imagine it's a bad team. Tyler McGill with an injury, thus they signed Julio Teheran, who's been good. I don't know what happened. He was a 2-time All-Star with the Braves, and then he just fell off the map, wound up in the Atlantic League. He's still only 30 years old. So hopefully they can catch lightning in a bottle with him. He's another if for the Mets, but Sean Manaea looked outstanding. He probably had the best start. And Adrian Hauser was good yesterday in his start. So I'm going to take it that it is just a bad start because I don't think McNeil, Lindor, and Nimmo will bat under 200 this year. So what do you say about what you've seen with the Mets so far?
I think because there was a few like I mean there was what Monday or so like earlier in the week there was the shutout until extra innings.
Yeah.
So like that tells me the pitching isn't that bad. And
Yeah.
especially when you get to the 8th inning, Ottavino's good. Obviously Edwin Diaz is like a top 5 reliever in the
Yeah.
game. So I think if you can hit enough, your pitching is good enough to at least do something. And Lindor is too good of a player to be batting below the Mendoza line.
Yeah.
McNeil's whole shtick is that he is like an average hitter, not like a 300 plus hitter type
Yeah.
of average hitter.
Definitely. Yeah.
So like, I think you like it's just always hard because every team goes through this stretch, and it feels a lot worse when it's the first week of the season.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that they will turn it around. But kind of with the same, like we talked about it last week with the divisions, the NL East is really good.
Yeah.
I know Bryce Harper has gotten off to a slow start. I know, I know that there's other things that might be going on that might make it struggling, but I
Yeah.
think that the Mets will turn it around. I think they could be over 500.
Yeah, that's and that's the saving grace right now because the Braves, they got off to that hot start, but they're only 3-2, but they have a couple of rainouts too. The Phillies 2-4, I believe they are, and Harper seemed to snap out of it the other night with 3 home runs, in a game, including a grand slam, right, that he hit that night. I'm with you. I think the Mets will be okay. They're in Cincinnati. I think it's good for them to get on the road. It'll probably be cold there as well, though. It'd be nice for them to get into the warm weather because it was really an ugly weather week here to start out the weekend. While it didn't rain, it was cold. And then this week it's been rain, and so I do like their lineup. I think they'll hit, and we still have JD Martinez. I don't want to put that pressure on him that he's got to come up and be the savior, though. So Lindor needs to start, getting into all three. Those three guys are the key. I'm not sure how much DJ Stewart will play once Martinez is up here, or even if he'll still be on the team. He's almost a little bit playing himself off the team right now. But I think that I'm with you. I think they'll be okay. Um, so let's go around baseball. Uh, a couple of things stood out in the first week for me, and that is the Tigers and seeing them up front, they're pretty good. Some of their young pitching is now they're 5-1, which is a really good start for them. Um, despite the fact that Javi Baez, although I did Javi Baez hit a home run in the series, I think he did. Um, but this guy Spencer Torkelson is a budding star. I didn't realize he had 31 home runs last year, and he was lighting up the Mets this week. But I like the Tigers team. It looks like they've rebuilt into something that is going to be a little special here. I think the Pirates every year they get off to this kind of start, so I'm not sure I could take them seriously yet. The Dodgers are who they are. I think the Dodgers are 7-2. But are you as puzzled as I am that the Marlins have started off 0-8?
Yeah, like, and they lost Yuri Perez, I know, for
Yeah, he's out for the
the
year now.
season,
Yeah.
but they weren't this bad last year.
They made
They
the
made
playoffs
like the
last year.
playoffs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they made the
I don't
playoffs
know.
last year.
Uh and I don't know, kind of in the same way you got a young team. Um it's I guess it's just a matter of trying to figure it out, and
Yeah.
Alcantara, like, how, like, I haven't seen what he's done. Has he been doing anything?
He pitched okay, but their offense has been terrible. I think he's only pitched once so far. They pitched opening day, and I'm not sure if he's pitched since. Although he should have because they played 8 games, so he should have. Um, there's a big rumor that the Padres want Luis Oroz in a big way. I'm not sure where they would play him, because Bogarts is over at second base now. But the Marlins would have, listen, if they start off bad and they're in the tank in June and the trade deadline comes along, they've got pieces that a lot of teams will want. I can't imagine that they won't turn it around. I thought Schumacher as their manager did great last year, so I think they'll turn around. I'm just really surprised they're 0-8. And sometimes you dig into those holes, it's hard to dig out. But then again, like I said, the National League East, nobody is lighting it up, just yet. So, they'll still be in the game. What stood out for you here in this first week?
Um Well, another thing, like, because yeah, the Angels, well, not the Angels, the Marlins going 0-8 is a little surprising.
Yeah.
You'd said the Pirates. I mean, that's I feel like it's every year. Oh wait, is this the Pirates year? And then before you know it, they lose 100 games.
Yeah.
Um, and they're also like the ex-Yankee group. Domingo Germán's there.
Yeah.
Gosh, and Duhar is there.
The Paul
Rose
O'Neill,
Chapman, I think, is there.
the yeah, Chapman is in the Paul O'Neill namesake.
Yeah,
I think he's
yeah.
gonna have a
O'Neill
big,
Cruz.
yeah, O'Neill Cruz. I think he's gonna have a huge year. I really do.
Yeah,
I think um, what else?
but also don't look now, but the Angels are right now in first place. Um,
You call
and
that?
that's
Okay.
despite
Yeah.
despite the 0 for 19 that Anthony Rendon has started out on.
Oh,
And that's a guy that needed to get off to a good
oh
start
my gosh. Yeah.
because the backlash continues with him.
Yeah.
And what did they say? You can have a full baby. It's been 9 months since he's gotten a hit.
Oh.
There was a guy that was in Double A that has gotten 33 hits since Anthony Rendon. Actually, no, I think he was in college and he has 33 major league hits before Anthony Rendon has gotten a single hit. So
Yeah. See, we understood what Rendon was trying to say. Most people, most baseball fans didn't, especially since he's not producing, that could get ugly quick, but I'm glad they're off to a good start. Um, the because the Mike Trout trade rumors will start, I think, if they also are really bad towards the trading deadline, because they're getting to that place where if they're ever going to trade him, it would have to be around this time, right? Where they could still get a big haul for him. Whereas if they wait till he's a little older, not so much. You'd like to see him start and finish his career with the Angels, but I think they've got to get good in order for that to happen.
yeah, because I guess the only thing that might be stopping that would be he's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's still got 7 more years.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that would probably prevent a little bit. But if let's say you're the Angels and you either trade for a bad contract, cough cough, Giancarlo Stanton, or
Well,
um, or you ask for like, or you pay for like a majority of his salary,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
then you could. I mean, if Mike Trout's on the market, someone's going to get him. The biggest thing would be his no trade clause.
Well,
So
yeah, and he's 5-10, I would imagine by now, right? But if he's got the
yeah,
no trade clause, it doesn't matter. I listen. They've always rumored that he would want to. He grew up in New Jersey, Southern New Jersey, so I think he grew up a Phillies fan. So they've already always said that he might wind up there. The Phillies would take on that contract in a heartbeat. And can you imagine him on the Phillies? I mean, he would just him and Bryce Harper batting back to back. That would be a nightmare for any team. Um, Let me get your take on the whole thing happening with the Oakland A's and who are just going to be called the Athletics for 2 maybe even 3 years here. What's your take on this?
the owner should sell the team. Um, like I don't know if you saw this quote, but apparently he said, "Yeah, we're excited to go to Sacramento to see Aaron Judge hit home runs."
Yeah, and he killed the fans for he killed the fans. You would think he would just keep his mouth shut. Yeah. Why did he say that with Aaron Judge? I saw that. But he also, there was a quote, and it was also the Kansas City owner kind of killed the fans as well. But whereas at the Chiefs, they played it down. We can talk about that in a second, but they downplayed the vote there. But the Royals owner was like, what is wrong with our fans? Don't they want, a new stadium? But the A's owner, my goodness, what is he thinking?
I don't know. I don't know because I mean the A's fans show that they're there. And apparently it's like a $34 million difference that he doesn't want to pay, but also he's like I think like the fifth or fourth richest owner in baseball. Like I think Steve Cohen's first, but like the guy doesn't spend any money. And then
34 million
because
for
the
a new
payroll,
stadium, right? There, is that the difference?
yeah,
Okay, gotcha. In
yeah.
Oakland
So
instead of moving to Vegas.
so
Gotcha.
that's why they're moving to Vegas.
Right.
But also it seems like Vegas doesn't want them. I don't know. It just seems weird. It seems like he doesn't like the fans, but like it's the fans that get you the revenue. And like it makes me feel sad that I look at like the footage from like 2015 when you have a packed Coliseum. And I saw one with Grant Balfour, who's a great name for a pitcher, by the
Yeah.
way. But um, like coming in a playoff game.
Yeah.
And now you have guys like, I mean, you probably have what, 5 or 6 players this year that are making more than the entire Oakland A's roster. And I
Yeah.
know it's not just about the money. Like we see teams every year that compete for a World Series that have a low payroll. But like you're not even willing to spend upgrades to a stadium that had a possum in the booth, right? Wasn't that with the Mets?
Yes. Yes.
Like
In the TV booth. Yes. Yes.
so I don't know. The Sacramento thing is going to be interesting. I wish that they would say the Sacramento A's, but it's just going to be weird. I hope that everyone kind of ignores them and calls them the Sacramento A's, but I don't know.
Yeah. But I just also wonder how major league players, I mean, they probably has to do some sprucing up to that ballpark, right? Because major league players are so used to, locker rooms, first class, really nice and everything. I can't imagine that a 14,000 seat ballpark, which there's something to the intimacy of that, right? Like when they play the Iowa game, in the Field of Dreams, there's something about, or when they do the minor league game, not the minor league, the little league game, there's something about that. But it's kind of novelty for a game or two, but for 82 games, to be in a 14,000 seat, stadium. Now, the people in Sacramento, they'll probably come out. They'll probably sell that out every night. And I would imagine he's going to have to raise the ticket prices. But is that a major league park? Will Aaron Judge just hit routine fly balls that'll go out of that park? Yeah, you got your fingers crossed. I, I think, where you were getting at, I think is what makes it also sad. I mean, in our in my lifetime even more because I'm old enough to remember the, three straight championships in the 70s and the great, Reggie Jackson, Vida Blue, Sal Bando, Joe Rudy teams, Catfish Hunter. Um, but I think I told you then it wasn't unusual when they were making the playoffs every year back then that Kurt Gowdy would say, I'm not sure why there are empty seats in the upper deck when they would play either the Orioles or the Red Sox for the championship, the league or the Tigers for the league championship series. But the fan base still supported them. But you and I, and then you had the 80s teams with Canseco and McGuire, Ricky Henderson, but you're old enough to remember the really good Billy Bean teams that seemed like they were in the playoffs every year and it had what was that, a 20 game winning streak that year,
Yeah.
where so to go from that to this now it's really it's hard to see, because that is a good sports city, but now you got the Warriors not playing there anymore, and now the Raiders left and now you're going to have the A's leave. So it's weird. I would imagine that Coliseum is worn down, is an old place. You and I have never been there, but to have a possum running around in the booth, I mean that's telling you something that it could get into the walls and stuff like that. Anything else on baseball?
No, it's been a fun first week.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, it's just gonna be interesting because I feel like oh, I guess the other note, I don't know if you saw like with Shohei Ohtani,
Uh-huh.
like that he hit his first home run as a Dodger, but then like the fan that caught it, they were like weird about it. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say, oh yeah, I know what's happening there. So
Yeah. Apparently they're saying she didn't get any. No, it was a lady, right? That caught
yeah,
his home. I don't know why. Is that a big thing? I mean, you hit your first home run as a Dodger and you need the ball. I don't know. I never heard that before. JD Martinez, first home run as a Met. I need the ball back. Come on, I
right.
guess though for a guy like Shohei who is, will probably walk into the Hall of Fame, maybe that is a big deal, but I thought that was kind of weird. All right. So you sent me this. Let's shift over to both the men and women's Final Fours here. As so Monday night, I have to tell you, I was enthralled with the LSU Iowa game, and we had our best buddy Larry lives up there in the Albany area, so he got tickets and went to the game. He said the atmosphere was electric, and it was on TV. Iowa outlasts LSU. LSU just seemed like to me they ran out of steam. Um, but you gave me a number, 12.3 million. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so after the ratings, 12.3 million was the viewership for the LSU Iowa State game. The biggest college game, or might be college basketball game that ESPN or any of their like affiliates have ever had. Um, 12.3 is also 4 million more than the World Series this year.
Yes.
Um, which is wild. But
Yeah.
also I think it shows the power of Kaitlin Clark.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
because like you look at the men's side, it's been a good tournament. There hasn't been like that huge Cinderella, like we talked about this last week, but like that huge Cinderella team, Oakland for a game, but like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Um, and like there also isn't like I know Zach Edey is probably that guy
Yeah.
in for Purdue,
Yeah.
but like even with Zach Edey, it doesn't seem like there's the aura around him. Not
Yeah.
like say Zion a few years ago, or even Anthony Davis when they were in the tournament. Talked about some of the bigger stars, but like Kaitlin Clark is bringing like a whole aura around
Yeah.
women's college basketball
Yeah.
to the point where like most people that would never watch women's college basketball are going to watch the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it before. Here in Cleveland is like the Final Four. I believe they doubled the ticket prices already. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's higher than the men's actually. The prices for the women's, and part of that is because it's a 19,000 seat arena, right? As opposed to a 60,000 seat where they're playing in Phoenix. Um can we talk about this for a second? Because you're hitting a great point. Um I think there's some reasons why we're seeing almost the women's being as popular. By the way, there wasn't one regular season college football game, men's college football game that exceeded 12.3 million. The only games that were more was at the playoffs and some of the bowl games. But there wasn't a regular season college football game that exceeded that rating. So, and that was more than all of the Amazon games, all of the Thursday night games. So now you're talking about going against the NFL. And so but there's a reason for that, I think now, Ken, because you hit on it. The men's we talked about. Now we knew we would have a lot of one and dones over the years, right? Um, let's just take a guy like Carmelo Anthony, who was an unbelievable college player, took them all the way to the championship, and he went right to the NBA, which he should have. Exceptional player. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Derrick Rose the same. I don't know if Derrick Rose will go to the Hall of Fame because his career has gotten a little cut short with these injuries, but same thing, one and done, right? But we did see them throughout the tournament, right? And there was an anticipation, and these guys were stars. But we also saw players that stayed for more than, 1 year, like Patrick Ewing over the years, like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson even stayed a few years, Larry Bird, and then even further, Grant Hill. You mentioned Tyler Hansborough, who stayed, I think, all 4 years. We got to know these guys a little bit more. Now, one and done. Okay, we didn't have too major a problem with that because we would look forward to seeing these guys in the NBA. But now, with that, you couple that with the transfer portal, I have no idea who a lot of these players are. And so you think about a team like Alabama, they're going to the Final Four, and the best player they've had probably ever, Brandon Miller, is in the NBA now. But yet they still through the transfer portal have got picked up a couple of really good players who, he transferred from Hofstra. They've got one guy on the team that transferred from Hofstra, and he's lighting it up. So but now you look at the women's side. How long have we known about Kaitlin Clark? For 3 years. We've known about Angel Reese for 3 years. Juju, the young lady at USC, freshman now, but we're going to see her for the next couple of years. Paige, the young lady in UConn, who's carried them now, was hurt. So now we have her for an extra year. So I think that what made the men's tournament so special is now making the women's tournament very special, but it's diminishing now in the men's tournament because you're right. I mean, you got Zach Eady and who else? DJ Burns has like become like a folk hero now, probably because of his size and the way he moves is which is great, but aside from, I mean, UConn, there's only one or two guys that was there last year when they won the championship. He's playing with mostly all new players, a lot of them from the transfer portal, a few freshmen. Um, so I think here's the other thing, and I want to hear your take. The 3-point shooting. Am I off if I say that the 3-point shooting, a lot of that is Kaitlin Clark. But watching that game and a few others, there are some others really good 3-point shooters on the women's side. Oh my God, the 3-point shooting on the men's side was driving me crazy. I was texting you, I was like, none of these guys can hit a shot. What's going on? How did UConn, was it UConn that went on a 30-0 run against our Fighting Illini with one of the best players in the country and Terrence Gannon, or Terrence Shannon Jr. The fundamentals on the men's side seem to me to be a little bit lacking as a 3-point shooting. If you watch that game with Iowa and LSU, you saw great passing, you saw great moving the ball around, great fundamentals. And oh, by the way, when not just Kaitlin Clark, but when any of these other, what's the other young lady's name on LSU, Flau'jae Johnson, when any of these guys were shooting up 3-pointers, they were hitting them. It was like nothing but net. And the men's side, you're just hearing these clanks, and it's like one and done. They're not getting under the boards or anything. So anyway, that's enough for me, and we'll get our picks in a second. But I want to hear your take on the disparity now with the men's and women's.
Until you mention it, I think about it. I think the lack of continuity and like the one and done / transfer portal has done kind of a number in there. Because even like, I mean, I had texted you afterwards. We were rattling off like notable guys that were in college basketball. One that sticks out that we forgot to talk about is the Wichita State crew, Cleanthony
Yeah,
Early, Fred VanVleet.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
all of those guys were there for several years, which is kind of
yeah,
what made their story great.
yeah,
And a lot of those, like the Cinderella teams, a lot of it is seniors, guys that like maybe they made the tournament, lost, or they came really close. But like it's always the guys that have stayed there a long time that kind of that stick
yeah,
out to you.
yep,
And yeah, like I know Caitlin Clark because she's been in the league or in college basketball for
yeah,
so long.
yeah,
So that is something interesting. I don't know if the NCAA is ever going to do anything about it. Because also, I don't know if this was kind of the bigger news story of the day. Ronnie James is declaring for the NBA draft and also going in the transfer portal. So, from what it sounds like, if he doesn't get drafted to a team that he likes, he's just going to go and transfer to another school.
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that's another issue. Because Bronny James, I think it would have been to me, I would have bet everything that he would have stayed at USC another year because he didn't play much this year. But his coach left. His coach is going to SMU. So that's the other problem. How often do you turn on the tournament and that's the first time you learn, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this coach was coaching this team. Weren't they coaching that team?
Right.
Shaka Smart. I remember it wasn't until the tournament a few years ago. Shaka Smart is coaching Marquette. He's not at Texas anymore, But the coaches leave like crazy. Therefore, the players leave. I think that's why Bronny James is thinking about going to the NBA. And we don't know though. We didn't see him play. I couldn't tell you for a second if he's ready to play in the NBA or not.
Now, and like it kind of is becoming more and more, especially on the men's side, like college basketball is becoming less college basketball and more like AAA NBA. Like I know the G League
Yeah.
exists,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like I think it's becoming more and more like this is I'm gonna just be here for a minute. Because like also the endorsement stuff. And look, if you're a college player and you're excellent, make your bag. Caitlin Clark made $6 million this year
Yeah.
just in endorsements, and
Yeah.
she should. And
Yeah.
I know like her salary for the WNBA probably going to be like 300,000 400,000,
Yeah.
but also like she's going to be fine anyway.
She'll
Like,
she'll make it off the court.
yeah,
Um, to back up what you said, I was jotting this down as you were talking. Um, and this is, see, I think that the portal is good, right? But we also shouldn't see 24, 25, 26-year-old players playing against 18, 19-year-olds. That just doesn't make any sense to me. But these teams can't hold on to their players. So think about this list. I just put five. We could probably think of more. Louisville, UCLA, West Virginia, Butler, Villanova. None of them made the tournament this year. In fact, they had awful seasons. You know why? A lot of their players transferred out. With Villanova, a lot of it was after Jay Wright retired. They're like, that I kind of understand, right? You have a bond with this coach. He comes to your house, recruits you, and then he says he's leaving. I understand a little bit, but some of even these big programs, it doesn't get much bigger than UCLA or Louisville, right? Traditional, but they were awful this year. Both of those teams. So I think that there needs to probably be a little bit more regulation on the portal. Maybe it's you can only do this once, something like that. You can transfer one time, and I'm glad they eliminated the whole red shirt thing, right? Because they would, lose a year and but I just think that it's just too crazy now and it's hard to follow. We had no idea going into the tournament, right? About a lot of teams, and you're the first one to admit it. You're like, I have no idea who's going to go to the Final Four because, I mean, I don't know which players are where. Anyway, so is the vibe there in Cleveland? People excited, pumped up?
yeah, it's because also I mean we didn't really talk about it on the baseball side, but the eclipse is happening on
Yep.
Monday here. We're
Yeah.
like right in the middle of the totality path, so
Yeah.
there's people coming in for that. But
Yeah.
then also like they have a whole thing downtown where they have like the bracket large somewhere. They have a couple. I haven't like gone and saw them, but they have like some interactive stuff. It's gonna be especially Caitlin Clark wins another game and she's in the final. It's gonna be
Yeah.
really exciting.
Yeah.
And then also,
Yeah.
yeah, like we're supposed to have like 250,000 people here between college basketball and then also the eclipse on Monday.
Wow.
So
It's gonna be exciting. See, I think South Carolina quietly is going to take the whole thing because I don't know any of their players, but I do know Dawn Staley, Deuce Staley's sister. A lot of people forget that, but she's been a winner for a long time there. And they have the better team according to everything that I've seen and read. And I did watch one of their games. Let's turn to the men's now. UConn, Alabama. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna go UConn just because it
Yeah.
seems right.
They've been killing everybody.
Yeah.
They've been killing everybody. I think it's just amazing. I want to give their coach credit because we were killing him last year for Alabama. That without Brandon Miller, he definitely got recruited some really good players to replace him. They are tough. I don't think they have enough for UConn though. Danny Hurley has just developed into a great coach. Perfect landing spot for him. There at UConn. But interesting, their center, Donovan Chingen, right? I think I pronounced his last name now, right? I know his first name is Donovan. He it'll be interesting if we get a Purdue and UConn final because those two guys will go at each other because he's 7'2" and he's pretty good. He's pretty agile, and everything. So how about NC State? I mean, they've been unbelievable. But Purdue is kind of fulfilling my prophecy here that I thought that they would be this year's Virginia, right? To come back from, getting smoked in the first round. Zach Edey could have been making millions playing in the NBA right now, but he chose to come back. And what are you thinking in that game?
Yeah, I think Purdue's a team on a mission. Because yeah, you'd said it, and I agree. I think that Purdue's going to win the whole thing. Um, Kind of, especially when you get bounced in the first round by a 16 seed.
Yeah,
I think it does something to you because now we've only seen it twice, and I know it's not a big sample size, but the team came back and won the whole thing and kind of
Yeah.
blitzed through everyone. So
Yeah.
I think Purdue's going to do the same. Also, Zach Edey trying to kind of seal up one of the better college seasons that you'll see out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because DeAndre Hunter, excellent NBA player, was on that Virginia team that lost. And he wrestled and struggled with should he stay one more year or go to the NBA. And his advisor said, "You better go to the NBA because you are an NBA player." And he is. He's been an excellent player. Um, but he goes and then Virginia wins the whole thing. Edie kind of did the opposite and said, "You know what? I want to come back." Because that left a bad taste in my mouth. No right or wrong either way, but it's amazing the contrast with the two of them. All right, it should be a great next few days. The women start tonight, Final Four is tonight, and then championship Sunday. Yes,
yeah.
yeah, okay, and obviously the men's is Saturday and championship Monday night. All right, let's stay with basketball for a few seconds. The Knicks. Oh my gosh. Great win last night against Sacramento. So this is still a very good team. But is this the year of what if, what could have been now with Julius Randle out for the year?
Yeah, shout out to Nick. He kind of said it perfectly. Like, I
Yes.
think it really is the year of what if. Because I think back to January, and this team started out when they acquired OG and Anunoby. They started out 14-1,
Yeah.
and then the injury bug just kind of killed them.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll still like. I'd be surprised if they fall all the way to the play-in. I know it's like obviously that's still possible. Um, but like, okay, so let's say they beat probably gonna face Orlando in the first round. Let's say they beat them. And then you gotta face the Celtics. Any chance that the Knicks had of beating the Celtics went out when Julius Randle got hurt.
Yeah.
I would argue probably the same with the Bucks. Because I know that they had kind of their weird funk, but also I think the biggest X factor is playoff Dame.
Yeah.
And like you can't beat that team when you're not at full strength.
Yeah.
Like if you're like I'm not wishing this upon him at all. Like if you lost Josh Hart for the year, you could still probably at least make the Eastern Conference Finals. But I do think that this is going to be the year of what if. Um, I think right now their ceiling is probably winning a round of the playoffs and then just kind of hoping and regrouping for next year.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
devastating what happened with Julius Randle, and I don't know if you saw that he said that he re-injured his shoulder.
Yeah.
So also part of me is a little concerned that this might not just be a this season thing, but also moving forward. And if that's the case, what do you do?
Yeah.
Because like you can't just it's not going to be easy to move that type of contract. And I don't know. Anunoby's been great when he's been healthy.
Yeah.
Um, Jalen Brunson obviously with a big game yesterday, and he's been excellent. But man, it's hard because like mid January, I was thinking, oh, like this team could be the number 2 seed. Even a couple weeks ago, like this team could get to the 2nd seed and not have home court until the
Yeah.
Eastern Conference Finals. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sounded so awesome and optimistic, but I don't think that's happening anymore.
Yeah. Um, I can't disagree with anything you said. The only thing I'll add is that even though these three losses they had this week, it really gave me actually some hope. Now, I know one of those losses was in San Antonio, and I was telling Nick I didn't recognize any of the other players except Wembyana, on San Antonio, but they rose up. That crowd was going nuts, and in overtime they beat the Knicks despite what was it, 61 points that Jalen Brunson scored. Who I gotta say, man, has got to get more votes for MVP. I don't understand why we're not looking at him a little bit more for MVP. But anyway, um then they lost to OKC, which was I mean, they didn't get the call on the foul. Otherwise, they would have been, the shot by Shy, Gildress Alexander that would have, tied the game instead of won it. I mean, he was money though. I got to give him credit. I forgot who was guarding him, but whoever it was right in his face, and he just buries that shot. I mean, it was amazing. He was like ice water in his veins. But anyway, that was a great game against a great team. Certainly the best young team in the NBA is the Thunder. And then they play Miami tooth and nail until the final 3 minutes or so. Um, so Kenny, let me ask you this then. Now the Bucks, I jotted that down here to mention. They've lost to the Hornets and to the Grizzlies this past week, last couple of games, and Doc Rivers is still saying they're trying to figure it out. I don't know what they're waiting for. So I think they're a little vulnerable. Can the Knicks, as constructed, beat them? I don't know. I don't want to say that. Um, but I think the Bucks are vulnerable. But when you look at the other teams in the East, let's take the Bucks and the Celtics out of the equation for a second. This Knicks team, let's say possibly, and now in the paper today is a very good possibility of OG being back for the playoffs. Can this team play with or beat every other team in the East? I mean, the Cavs? I mean, can they beat the Cavs?
Uh, I think we're looking at a 7 game bloodbath if they face the Cavs,
Right.
because like Donovan Mitchell has been really good.
Yeah.
I know he had a couple of really pop off type of games, but he's been really good. They're also really good on defense, and they're really well coached. Um, but also I think the Knicks could still win. Like if you're looking outside the Bucks and the Celtics, there's no team that I'm like, oh my gosh, if we face them, I don't know.
Miami.
Aside from
Yeah.
Miami or
Yeah.
maybe the Sixers if they make it,
The
and Embiid
Sixers,
is hot.
man. Wow. That's such an X factor now with Embiid back. The Sixers are gonna be and he's rested. Hopefully he's healthy, but I think the Knicks are better than Indiana and Orlando. Would you agree?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think they match up well with Miami. Uh, you know, I, I don't know, man. It's got the thing is every time I get discouraged, then they play a game like they did last night, where Sacramento is a really good team. And Sacramento might be in the play-in because the West is so tough, but they are a really good. De'Aaron Fox was just, oh my gosh, he's such a good player, and Sabonis is one of the best passing big men. I mean, he was making passes out of like crazy last night. Um, I don't know, man. It's discouraging, and every time I get a little afraid of the Cavaliers, and I didn't stay up, I watched, I think, the first quarter, but they were on. That was a great doubleheader. They had them against Phoenix out in Phoenix. And when I got up in the morning, Phoenix beat them like 119 to 101 or something like that. So every time I think the Cavs are better than I think, they seem to get smoked by somebody. Um, so I don't know. It's just so disappointing that Randall's not going to be there.
yeah. Because like, I mean, if you are the Celtics or the Bucks, you don't want to face the Heat because,
Right.
like, you look at last year, you're like, oh my gosh, that's gonna happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But besides them, you're kind of not really that worried about anyone. Like you could take care of the Cavs, but like if you look at the Knicks and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to play them.
Yeah.
Like you get kind of a weird thing, or like let's say Dame tweaks something in a game, and like things can just happen. I mean, it's a 7 game series, probably kind of as always. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be that key injury that's going to hurt someone's playoff chances, whether that's the
Yeah.
Celtics, whether that's the Bucks,
Yeah.
God forbid Denver,
Yeah.
Minnesota, whoever.
Yeah. We got to dive a little bit more into the NBA next week because I'm liking what I see from Dallas of late as well. I'm liking what I see from Phoenix. I think they've kind of righted the ship, both those teams. I know you're not a Dallas fan, but Doncic is probably the MVP, this year. If the Joker doesn't win, but you can line them all up in the West. Are they going to be good enough to beat Denver in a 7 game series? I don't know. I just it's hard to imagine any of them doing that. But there's some. It's going to be quite the fight with the Clippers in there as well. Warriors and Rockets. I believe the Warriors won that game last night, right? Against the
Yeah, I
Rockets.
believe
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Um, I want to expand the conversation. We'll save it for next week. because I want to go a little deeper into it. You actually, we talk about Stephon Diggs. He's only 30 years old and he's still one of the best receivers in the league. And so, yes, I was shocked that the Bills finally kind of traded him. I would have thought they would have traded him a year or two ago when he sort of seemed like he didn't want to be there. But there's some other things with the Bills, and I think I want to talk about windows closing quick on teams, right? Because we see it in the NFL because of the domination of the Chiefs and even the 49ers. There's some teams that get blocked, and the Bills have made some moves to me that have me scratching my head. Um, but I also look at a team like the Cowboys, how many years are they going to knock on the door? The Bengals, how many years are they just going to knock on the door and not get there? So maybe we could kind of use that as a topic next week. What do you think?
Yeah, I saw this earlier, and I'll just throw it out here because it's kind of interesting. Do you think the Bills would be open to trading Josh Allen to his former offensive coordinator for the number 6 overall pick,
Which is where?
the Giants?
Oh, I think that the Bills at this moment would be open to anything. I really do. If they trade Josh Allen, then you know that they're in full rebuild mode. But they've made a lot of moves. So Gabe Davis, Tredavious White, Jordan Poyer, these guys are all pros that they cut. And I know some of it was salary, and they signed a bunch of guys too. But they right now, and who knows with the draft, they appear to be taking a big step backwards, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
and also with Diggs, they didn't get any salary cap relief this year.
no.
Like he's like a $31 million dead cap hit. So
Yeah. So would that shock me? No. I think they'd be open to trading anybody at this point, which again, it surprises me because they've come so close, but it's been several years now. So let's look at this a little closer next week because there's a couple of other NFL teams. There's even some NBA teams I think that are like that the window's closing. The Lakers, for example, the Warriors. Um, and there's probably some baseball teams where the window may be closing as well. So let's do that next week. I think the Bills will top the list for me. I When you asked about Stephon Diggs, I dug in a little bit and I was like, no pun intended, Stephon Diggs, I dug in. But I was just like,
good
look at
one.
all these. I was like, look at all these great players that they traded, or cut, didn't get, and they didn't get much back. A second round pick for one of the best receivers in the league for a long time. He's been. So I don't know. You ready to go to some inspiration?
Yeah,
All
let's do
right.
it.
All right. Ryan Clark is my inspiration this week. Ryan Clark, I've totally forgotten that he played for your New York Giants first 3 years in the league. And then he went to Washington and then to the Steelers was where he played his best ball. He was all pro a few years and he won a Super Bowl ring. Just totally by accident in a reel, I saw a reel with him talking about Jesus Christ and how Jesus Christ has always been in his life and that his faith has been strong because he's always felt like there's a lot of negative things that happen around him and some ungodly things that happen around him, whether it's in a football locker room or even in the broadcast industry that he's in right now. He said that the faith has kind of kept him insulated from those things. And he said this on a podcast I listened to him. I only win when I put him first. Any other time where I haven't put Jesus Christ first in my life, I haven't come in first. And what I really liked that inspired me was you probably saw this that his contract with ESPN was up. Now he's become one of the rising stars at ESPN. Now he retired in 2015, so he's been broadcasting for about 9 years now. But he's still pretty young. He's 44. He's a father of three, married father of three, married for a long time. One thing I'll tell you in a second that you have in common with him. But he took a chance on himself. He didn't have an agent. He walked into ESPN and said, listen, I've proven a lot now over these years because he felt like he was grossly underpaid for a long time, but he never whined about it. He just said, I'm going to prove myself every day. I become one of the best broadcasters, not just football. He does a podcast with a couple other ex-players Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor. Um, it's called the Pivot Podcast, I think. It's very good, actually. And so he negotiated his own contract with ESPN, and now he's one of the higher paid folks with ESPN, deservedly so. But one of the charities that he's deeply involved in, he couldn't play when his team would go to Denver because he would get these seizures, being at the higher altitude because they said because he has a sickle cell trait, which I believe you have, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't affect you or impact you in any way. And most people it doesn't, but some people it does. And so with him, it did. So now he gives millions, or he raises millions of dollars for sickle cell anemia, and really looking for a cure for that. So Ryan Clark, my inspiration for this week.
Oh wow, that's good. And yeah, I have it, and Eliana has it actually too.
I didn't realize
Um,
Eliana has it. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, my my inspiration's a little different, but it's one of the most painful stories you'll hear all day. Um, so John Kruk, all
Yeah.
star in the
Oh,
'90s.
yes.
I remember more for his time at ESPN, Sunday
Yes.
Night Baseball, and all. Um, while he was a player, I believe this was in 1993. He's on first base. Pitcher tries a pickoff attempt, misses the first baseman, and he gets drilled right in the testicles.
Oh,
Absolutely painful. Like I can only imagine, like pitcher 95 miles an hour, and it actually like broke his cup. Like that's how forceful it was.
yes.
And he was in pain for months, months on end. It just really it really like brought him a lot of pain to the point where like there were days where he's throwing up, he couldn't move. It was awful. So one day he goes to the doctor and says like just cut him off. Like I can't deal with it anymore. Obviously it's not like a life vital organ. Um so he goes for the surgery. And while he's going through the surgery, they discovered that he has testicular cancer. So obviously it was caught in an early stage because he wasn't showing any other symptoms. And usually with testicular cancer, especially like the early stages, there are no symptoms. So, so he goes through the surgery, and then obviously has to go through like several rounds of radiation. So in the 94 season, he goes through he's going through treatments in the morning for cancer, and then is actually playing throughout that, like in the later part of the day. Listen to his stats in 1994. Obviously, shortened year, but the dude batted in 75 games. He batted 302 with a 395 on base, 427 slugging, so an OPS of 823, which is really good.
Mm,
And then he also hit 5 home runs and 38 RBIs in like roughly a third of a season.
yeah.
Um, and also an OPS plus of 114, so 14% better than the average hitter while dealing with radiation, which like
Wow.
obviously like you've been in that seat, like
Yeah.
let alone it's hard to do anything, let alone playing baseball at an all-star level. Obviously, I don't even know. Did they have an all-star game in 94? Either way, he
Yes.
didn't make it. So,
Yeah.
but um and also the year before he was on the all-star team while having cancer.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a great example of how, I mean, it's got to be the most painful moment of his life when
Oh,
he got struck in the man region with a baseball.
I can't imagine. Wow.
But that pain led to something that eventually would save his life. So, yeah, I mean, we don't know why painful things happen sometimes, but sometimes God uses that to bring out something that we need to
No doubt.
address.
No
So,
doubt. No doubt. Wow, that's great. When you had first told me that, I was like, what? He has, but then I remembered that story. I was like, oh my gosh, I remembered when that happened. They wouldn't show highlights of that back then, because it was awful. And John Kruk, very interesting dude. I thought he was underrated player. I thought he was a very good hitter. Always overweight. He always was kind of portly. but he could hit. I mean, the guy could hit. He wasn't a big home run hitter for his size. You'd have thought he would have been, but and I thought he was a really good broadcaster. You and I remember him Sunday Night Baseball and Baseball Tonight. I always thought he was a pretty good broadcaster. And I believe he's still a broadcaster with the Phillies. Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's every day broadcaster with the Phillies. That's a good one, man. And God uses stuff, the bad stuff for the good, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, on that note, we got a lot to talk about. What a great weekend this is coming up. You're our eyes on the ground, Kenny. You have to keep us posted of what the pulse is like there for the women's Final Four. This is big.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try to tweet at Kaitlin Clark if you come to the coffee house to give you free coffee.
There you go. You never know. You never know, right? I mean, other people have answered, your tweets, so you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.